This is the Energizing India podcast.
Welcome to the Energizing India podcast, a program that focuses on electric mobility in India and how to bring about faster adoption of the energy transition, both in static energy and electric mobility. Typically on this program, we focus on key protagonists in the sector, including policymakers, regulators, people who make electricity, people who make cars or batteries, and very rarely do we get the chance to talk to people who make infrastructure for charging fast and slow charging of cars in India. Today, our show is a very special one because we speak to two people from the charging infrastructure sector in India. We welcome to our show Amit Kekare, Head of Electric Mobility from Siemens India, and Arth Patel, Founder and CEO of one of India's little gems, Tirex. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us here.
Thank you.
I'm interested perhaps of your journey before you got to electric mobility. How did you, from education to your jobs today, come about to land in the electric mobility sector? Perhaps we can start with you, Amit.
Thanks, Ravi, for having me. It's been a long journey with background in power electronics and electrical engineering. The passion was always to be involved into engineering and tech-related businesses, and Siemens has given that opportunity. I've been leading Siemens' e-mobility business for India for better part of last 5 years. Siemens has been in e-mobility for more than a decade. We are the pioneers around the world. And over my 20 years of experience, I have put a lot of different hats, engineering, designing for high voltage DC, different power system designs, then different functions in the strategy, lived and worked across 3 continents. So that actually made me do this particular responsibility in 2019. And since last 5 years, very actively participating in the Indian EV ecosystem and now spearheading the e-mobility business for Siemens.
Excellent. And Arth, your journey is interesting. You were in Australia, you even worked with Google, you were in UCLA. How did you end up here?
So I ended up in the e-mobility industry because I've always been passionate about technology, and my family business, the background that I have is majorly into non-technical stuff. So whenever I wanted to do something of my own, it had to be, and I wanted to do something in technology. So we have a family business in gearboxes. So the closest thing to gearboxes like motors. We started out exploring motors for electric vehicles because back in 2017, electric vehicles were just slightly picking off, I would say, in India and certain parts of the world as well. So the motors idea failed because of various reasons. Then we did batteries. Again, batteries also failed because of many reasons. And then we stumbled upon chargers. And then finally, I would say 2018 onwards, we started working on chargers. Again, from day one, being a very passionate person about technology, I wanted to focus on high technology items like DC chargers, not the AC bit of it. So we have focused on majorly DC chargers, I would say, for the last 6 years, 7 years, and it's been going good so far.
Excellent. So your journey has been an interesting one because you created a company and then you went through an investment journey. And your journey, Amit, is the other way around. Somebody created a company and you were the investor in that business. So it'd be interesting to hear both your perspectives on why India to start with, and then at what point was it the right point to make the investment or to get an investment from your perspective?
So from my perspective, to be honest, why India? First of all, India is, to be honest, the biggest market right now in the world, in any field, be it technology, be it healthcare, you name it, any field, the highest number of population, various factors. India is a very fast growing market. So yes, that is the reason, not Australia, where I was based out of, and India. Now coming to the investment part, so my first investor was my family, to be honest, because my first angel investment was done by my family. Then we got an angel investor based out of Ahmedabad, from strong family background. And then we slowly moved on to scaling up our company in a larger scale. And then we knew that if we had to go global, we needed a partner who was able to take us global, not just stay in the Indian market, make something in India and sell it out for the global market. So hence we got a global investment partner from the Gulf Oil and the Hinduja Group. So that was the primary reason of getting the investment, to allow ourselves to leverage the technology that we had and the cost optimization that you can do in India to create that technology and expand globally.
So as a founder, your journey is unique, Arth, because you founded the business. It is a high-tech business, and it needs a lot of money. What was the process you went through to identify, now is the right moment, I'll get the right valuation rather than later or earlier? The key mistakes you make is go too early or go too late, and the magic is right in the center. So how did you arrive at that?
To be honest, I had no plans of selling controlling stake back in 2020, 2021, to be honest, when we started having conversations with various people for that, we were just looking out for an investment to scale up our operations, to invest more into R&D. And this opportunity came through Gulf Oil and to the Hinduja Group that, okay, we'll invest, but at the cost of a controlling stake. So it was a trade out that we have that, okay, either we just keep on looking for investors for a year or more who will be happy to take like 25-30% of the equity, like a VC sort of thing, or we get someone who is solely focused on Tirex. I mean, from VC standpoint, a VC would invest in the same industry in 10 different companies. But from a strategic investment point of view, they would never go and invest in another company doing the same thing. They would always help me scale the company more. So hence, looking at those trade-offs and considering that Gulf Oil and the Hinduja Group aligned in terms of mindset to what I had, what my family had, the values that we shared, like saving money, thinking global, thinking word is our bond and stuff like that. So those mindsets aligned, as well as the thought of having a strategic investor in place, and hence we took the call to have that investment.
And Amit, from your perspective, Siemens, biggest power electronics company in the world, fantastic product by itself, one of the world leaders, many, many geographies where you produce big infrastructure capability in India to manufacture as well. But you chose instead to go down the strategic acquisition route. Tell us about the journey there.
Absolutely. So, I mean, as you rightly said, Siemens has a legacy of all technology-based innovations and product and solution in-house. We were also one of the select pioneers last 10 years when the EV probably was in the very nascent stage around Europe. So we have seen that journey, and India now, as Art mentioned, is, I'll put a number there, that we are third largest automotive market in the world, right? And when Siemens was evaluating how to cater this particular market, indeed we have looked at our own technology. We have that technology in-house, so the knowledge is there. For flexibility of the Indian market, what is asked by the customer, many times the design changes are very specific for India market. And in that context, the global portfolio also had a little bit of a portfolio gap, which is on the lower power ranges. And that's where it fit the strategic angle that it's not having any overlapping perspective of the power ranges. Siemens was playing on the global markets with higher power ranges, and that's the matured market power ranges, which is about 150 kilowatt and above. And India market is in nascent stage. It will grow up in multifold and also would have different higher power capacity requirements, but it's going to take time. So to cater the third largest market, it was right move at this time to technologically partner with someone who has a product, who also is having the same DNA as being a technocrat. And that's how we took that decision to tie up with Mastic Controls, and we acquired their EV charging business in 2023.
So gentlemen, both of you have made the decision to operate in one of the most complex geographies in the world when it comes to cost, reliability, innovation, constant need for customization. But before we address that element of how, what's the magic of being able to be successful in India, I'd like to talk about something that bugs this industry across the world, and that is charger reliability. One of my hobbies whenever I'm traveling overseas is to rent an electric car and then stop at every charger and just do a test.
Same with me. I've done that multiple times, multiple countries.
And no matter where, you're in Norway or Australia, the count gets to about 60% chargers work, and somewhere between 40 to 50% of the chargers don't work. In some countries they're better at it, some countries they're not. And they're at that volume in Norway, for example, right? We don't even have that volume in India. So when we get to that, imagine 40% of chargers not working. They're very expensive Godrej cupboards, steel cupboards sitting on the side, or an Almira sitting on the side of the highway. I would love to hear your perspective on how we as an industry address reliability and resilience of chargers that are being installed on the road.
So in terms of reliability, I feel that thought has to be put at the design stage, not when you launch the product in the market. Yeah, so it has from day one, the thought has to be given that, okay, this product has to be made for, let's say, 8 years or 10 years or 20 years, depending on the usage, depending on the product. So at the design level, you choose the components which would outlast the life of the charger. That's how you get, like, if for example your charger is meant to work for 10 years, then you select the components that are meant for, let's say, 12 or 15 years. Then on an average, when you combine, some may fail off in 8 years, some may fail off in 15 years, you have an average of 10 years life. So that thought of reliability has to be given while designing, like while at the stage of deciding what you want, while drafting your PRDs or SDDs or stuff like that. So in reliability factor has to be very important in charging industry, from my perspective.
Finally, whatever infrastructure we are building for our customers, it's getting used by an EV user, right? And if the EV user is not having the correct experience, and rightfully you put, that can be actually a jeopardizing the entire revolution, what we are looking at as an EV revolution, right? In that context, I always put that request towards my all designers, saying that think about it as an infrastructure. We are designing an infrastructure. Infrastructure needs to be reliable, modular, and scalable. It needs to be such a way that it can be replicated. Reliable is important because currently the EV charging infrastructure, even if the usage may be lower, you will not see the problems, but it will pop up when the utilization goes high. And in that context, anticipating that particular design challenge is the key. Fortunately, we do have enough amount of R&D colleagues from our global experience, also with local Indian experience. So India, even though we were not doing business for e-mobility before we stepped into the Indian market, there was good amount of R&D engineer centers based out of India doing for the global product development. We were also providing the remote monitoring supports of our global portfolio. So in that context, the knowledge is already here. Now to actually continuously have that feedback loop to ensure the product quality coming out of that production facility and design iterations, taking the reliability into account. It's easier said than done because at the end of the day, the economics and the product quality, when you are doing the product quality as the best part, at the same time you have to also meet the economics portion. And it keeps on having that balance. But Siemens has been doing that in Indian, let's say, context or continent for better part of 150 years. We got that legacy. We have 32 manufacturing facilities. So we know how to do that balance. And that's been our core strength, which we hammer it on every product design and life cycle.
So what sort of problems are you seeing with your equipment today, typically because of the complexity of the geography that you're operating in, which is, high heat, high humidity, high dust, customers that are learning themselves, vehicles that are new and therefore have their own bugs, and everything ends up being the charging box having a problem. What are the sorts of learnings that you've had along the way?
So I would say over the last 6 years, we have invested a lot and learned a lot from the data of the vehicles, of the ambient weather around, because you go to the southern part of India, the weather is completely different. You go to north, it's different. For example, Mumbai, Pune also, the weather is drastically different, even though they are like 200 kilometers apart. So India has a very vast geography in terms of, size, as well as the weather conditions, dust conditions, etc. Even in some cities, when you place a charger in an X location compared to like a bus depot, the weather conditions are different. The air around it is different.
Exactly.
So you have to learn and improve. There are only so much that you can simulate but the rest of the part has to be from your field learning. So when you are designing, let's say, a newer generation of the product, you need to have that data in place that, okay, in the last generation, this is what we had, this is what went wrong, this is how it went wrong, this is how we solved it. So you learn and then you improvise in like a newer generation. So for example, our higher capacity chargers, which you have for the bus industry right now, are third generation. They are completely different from what we had 6 years back. Because we started from the bus industry itself. Yeah. We started with the higher capacity chargers first, and then we scaled it down to like 60 and 30 kilowatt worth of size. So the ones we have in the bus industry have been, put in 7 years of thought in terms of reliability, that, okay, this went wrong at one site here in, let's say, Northeast. This went wrong in Southeast. The temperatures were like this. The power conditions were like that. So all those thoughts have to be put into place when you are designing a new product. I would say, especially for the Indian market, because the market is so vast, so wide. You also have to understand the user application, because India has, I would say, more than 100 different languages, more than 100 different smaller pockets of cultures. Everyone has their own way of doing things, interacting with the infrastructure, because at the end of the day, charger is a public infrastructure. So every person, be it a personal EV owner, be it a driver, be it a bus driver, be it a driver of a personal car, they all interact with the charger in a different way.
True.
Not everyone. For example, if I have my car and I go to a charger, I'll interact in a different way than my driver would. Mm-hmm. So we have to learn those things as well over the period of time and incorporate in the product.
In your perspective, Amit?
Absolutely. So as Art touched upon the environmental conditions, absolutely bang on. Indian continent is a mix of as large as Europe. You have northern part of India, which is having all cold weather and hot weather, versus southern part of India is hotter, hottest kind of direction, and that gives them opportunity to test your product in different condition, also in different user mentality. Yes, we did also see challenges in different user experiences in cable handling, or even in HMI approach, human-machine interface, how that people from, let's say, northern part of India would differently use versus western part of India. Maybe there is a different training part. We don't underestimate also the regular Indian innovativeness. So if the temperature goes up, if actually power is getting derated, there is a trained engineer around from the operation side. The easiest way is to open the door and let the ventilation become much more easier. That's a very easy way out of it. But then the aspect of dust coming in and actually causing further more degradation of the infrastructure is lost. But this is what exactly what Siemens decided was, okay, we learn from putting it in the field. So since 2020 onwards, we have been putting DC chargers again in bus application, because it's at the one location, and you get furthermore higher utilization, because normally the chargers in bus depot are getting charged or used for close to 10 to 12 hours. Yeah? That gives a rigorous operational experience. And also you get to know about how a person who is under tremendous operation pressure going to handle this charger. So that gave us a pretty well data points, which has been getting into our next generation designs. We are always progressing, because always there will be a next set of challenges. But we are confident that by knowing this ecosystem and continuously engaging with the different operators, different EV users, and different platforms like today's, we can continuously appeal to the EV users or the operators to keep that in mind, that the equipment is not a regular, let's say, consumer electronics. It's a power electronics, and it's electrically designed for a specific end application. How to use it is what we continuously train, and we'll continue to do that.
An excellent point. Design it keeping the customer's innovative use case application in mind.
I would love to know how Quench's and Ador's experience has been in terms of putting the chargers out in the field, and what learnings have you had?
Great question. Very similar to yours. You have to understand the geography and the usage case of the customer. We've had some unique situations that are unique to India. I think our early chargers were destabilized by the grid, and so we had to build in a lot of protection to the charger. We had another set of circumstances where, on the west coast of India, particularly if you're on the highway that is on the coast, you have 4 months of rain that comes at 8-9 hours at 45-degree angles. And whilst your charger is rated IP54, that kind of deluge is above the rating of IP54. So you've got to think about what else am I going to build into this charger that is unique for that application, because particularly Kerala, Karnataka, Goa, the Konkan coast, Maharashtra, the rain, is significant, 8-9 hours continuous from the month of June. So there was some learnings there. Amperage of guns versus application bus charging is probably
continuous.
Yeah, so the customers order something, you delivered it, but then after 8 hours it's melting because they're using it more than the duty cycle of the cable. So you have to learn that actually it's not just designing the charger, it's also consulting through the process with the customer. We made a portable charger. It's a 30 kilowatt portable charger, and we had to design that to be idiot-proof, because it's power electronics. You don't expect customers will drop it, but the first delivery, the customer dropped it off a platform, and then their expectation is it should work after being dropped off the platform. So then we had to go back, redesign this product, and drop it 1,000 times off a platform to see that it works. So the journey has been unconventional, I guess, is probably the best way to answer that. Is like nothing else we've done before. The other problem, I wouldn't say problem, the other challenge we have in each geography is that customers want extreme customization, and I'd love to hear your opinion of this, because you have on one side this need for resilience, and resilience means standardize, don't change, because that's how you get resilience. It's like a Toyota, you can have a 20-year-old Toyota and it'll drive 50,000 kilometers, no problem. And at the moment you start to customize, you compromise resilience. And the customers in many geographies, particularly South Asia, Southeast Asia, want constant customization, constant innovation. And quite often you're writing code that impacts another 2,000 lines of code that you've had no time to test before you're out on the road, because that's the expectation. And so for us, that has been a big learning. You have to be ahead of the curve. You've got to be able to temper customers' expectations. And sometimes you've just got to give in and, say Jai Bajrang Bali and do it and deal with the consequences that happen on the road. And I'd love to hear your take on that, because it's a struggle on a day-to-day basis.
I would say customization is a big challenge for any industry, not just charger. Whenever customization comes, it has to be validated thoroughly, but then also you have to meet the expectation of delivery from the customer. They would say that, okay, for a customer, the customization might, take only a week's time to get done. They just want something changed on the UI or some functionality changed in the communication with the server or stuff like that. But it has to be validated with the other aspects. As you said, the other 2,000 lines of code has to be validated of how it interacts with it. So we have had significant learnings, I would say, and in our newer generation of products, we have separated that application part with the control part in the charger. We have had the board that controls the power electronics, the contactors and everything separate, because that code doesn't change regardless of the front-end customization. So no matter what we do on the application part of it, it stays the same. It is still the strongly validated product that we have. So that has, I would say, made it a little easier to customize. But yes, still customization becomes a big challenge when things go out of protocol in certain cases. Because people don't understand the consequences that might take a year down from today. You may customize it and just give it out in the field for operation, but a year from today, when that certain end case that has been tested by the protocol guys for like tens of years comes in your actual application, then you have problems arising. We have had cases with the PLC controllers of a lot of different companies missing out certain ISO standard messages, the 1511 messages. Charger works, it'll charge the car, but it will not be able to handle the end case that might come once in a year.
Exactly.
So those things have to be validated thoroughly before putting out in the field.
I'll say yes. I mean, on the software side, it's still manageable firmware wise. You can, if you have a good firmware management processes, and being German company, we are always heavy on processes. We have that systems in place. Firmware management wise, one can still at least adapt. Where comes the challenge is on the hardware side. If even the customer is continuously changing some of the other requirements about screen sizes or footprints or any other aspects. And I'll take an example of our own India's journey in thermal power plant on that context. When over last few years, not this decade, but the 90s, because of the resource optimization, and every time the thermal power plants were getting designed or customized a particular megawatt levels or something, and they were never rounded off. So the turbines and the other aspects of the entire system had to be designed for each plant differently. It was asking for a man-hours investment, engineering investment, time delay, and then the infrastructure was eventually getting built little bit delayed. Around 2000 onwards, India indeed came up with a policy, now we need to scale the power generation part much faster, and there were these 600, 800 megawatt ultra mega power plants. And once that power plant was designed, then you could actually scale. And that's why I keep on saying that we need to treat EV charging as an infrastructure. It needs to be reliable for sure, but it needs to be scalable. If it is customized for interface level or appearance level, yes, still you can manage it. But if it is continuously customized, then the scale at which market of India is going to ask the OEMs will struggle, and the quality then will have to be suffered, because then you will continuously have to invest time on monitoring different customized models, and that will delay the delivery. So the need of the hour for around the world, including India, for EV charging is fast deployment of reliable infrastructure, and the way to go scale is to be modular. Whether it is 50 kilowatt or 60 kilowatt, 80, 90, we are still dabbling with those numbers because of uncertainty of the standardization, right? And that also causes sometimes slow implementation part. And if it can be at least in the modular format, the scale at which India EV charger ecosystem can play will be unbeatable.
So both of you brought an interesting point about design it from the perspective of customer usage and resilience, right? And I think it's interesting because in the CCS world, in the protocol world we operate in, we are one part of the ecosystem, whilst in the Tesla world, they are completely in control of the ecosystem. So the customer experience is very different. And I'm interested in your perspective of how you address this, and I'll set the scene. I was in Norway, it would have been a year ago, and I got the car rental from Sixt, and they gave me a brand new Audi e-tron, 4 kilometers on it. And at a full charge of 350, and the customer was 330 kilometers away. So we drove the 330 kilometers in the snow, -6 degrees, white roads. Finished the customer meeting, had to go back to the airport, and I was stressed, going, I've got a very small SoC, where can I charge? And they said, right next door, there's 6 250 kilowatt chargers in a Burger King. Go there. So we went there. And it was empty. It was beautiful. It was, 6 o'clock in the evening, snowing a bit, empty, perfect. Connected it in the snow, and the charger went into reboot. And so stress, move the car to the next one. Next one into the reboot. Next one went into reboot. 5 out of the 6 chargers went into reboot. All it said was reboot. And the 6th one said, communication error, disconnect and reconnect again. And I did that, and then it started to charge. But the stress of, in that cold with the small SoC needing to go back to the airport, trying to make these chargers work in the country that has the most electric vehicles in the world, got me thinking about how is that happening? And we got down to it in the end because we did a YY. I had a brand new car with brand new software, and the charger recognized it couldn't communicate with the car, so it had to reboot, upload, and then give us give you the charge. But the charger is designed in a way that's not customer centric, so it says rebooting when it should have said, "Hi, you got a new car. Don't stress. Just give me some time to upload." Now, why is it uploading? Because its chief financial officers decided, I don't want to be spending all this data every night, every time a car company puts out a new one. And so I'll do it only when I get the car, right? So you're saving some money there. And the car companies are also not talking to the charger companies. So they're willy-nilly upgrading their software, and the charger companies don't know. And so the customer experience in the end is really, really dismal. But in Tesla, that's not the case. So I'm interested, how did you get your heads around this? Or what are you thinking of where the industry needs to go to ensure that this doesn't happen?
We have faced a similar, actually almost similar thing in India, where at a bus depot, we were charging 50 buses for the past 6 months continuously every day. Good charging, every single bus was being charged. And suddenly one day the charging stops and our engineers were in trouble. Like we didn't change anything in the charger. And because it was night time, the bus team was not available. So the buses didn't charge. The entire night, 50 buses, just no charging happening. The other day when the bus team came, we got to know that, okay, they upgraded the software on the bus side. So now we have to operate in the charger side as well and do it. So I would say this learnings would come and go. It's a new industry, so it will take some time to stabilize it. Particularly in the Tesla case, this doesn't happen because Tesla makes the charger and the vehicle, both
and
things,
the battery,
and the battery and everything, like the controllers, the BMS, everything is made by Tesla. So they won't face this error because they will know, okay, we have upgraded the car's firmware like this, so we need to upgrade or tweak the charger's firmware also. So when it comes to CCS, even though standards are there, 15.11.8 and 70121, whatever, they need to be followed strictly by the car OEMs as well as the charger OEMs. No, like one line of customization or one line of difference would cause effects on the whole network. So that has to be there. Secondly, a good relationship, I would say, between the car OEMs and the charger OEMs would definitely help. I mean, I'm happy to put out charger in all the plants of the car OEMs just to know what new things they are doing in their car. So before they come out with that in the market, charger OEMs are already aware, and we can already upgrade all our firmwares of all the infrastructure to ensure that, okay, a new car is launched, we'll be able to charge it. So that thing is something that could be done apart from, strengthening and making strict policies.
I would go back to basics that the EV charger is one of the piece of that entire operation, right? There are two more external elements. So one, obviously the vehicle is one, but the charge point management system, which is actually telling, it's kind of a brain of that charger. Yes, the charger is behaving independently, but the charge point management system is one piece. And the smallest but the most critical part is the wireless network. So these kind of smaller things, so the infrastructure is a complete package, and many times because it's an EV user, it's an experience of EV user. As you rightly said, Ravin, you were driving the car, you had obviously that experience that it is brand new, so nothing can be wrong with my vehicle.
Exactly.
Which is true in that case, but the first time the EV user will say that it's charger, it's not even, there will not be a first question whether there is a network problem or there is a charge point management system has certain upgrades going on, or there is a revision going on, or the app and that there is a latency. Many times the app and the charging management system does have certain communication latency. It's still in the very nascent stage for the EV user also, and hence that a little bit of a frustration built in. Engagement on different platforms, different forums for EV users, OEMs would happen. That would definitely reduce this frustration and also increase the communication between the stakeholders. What Siemens does in that context is for interoperability for both sides. For the charge point management systems, we have a huge hackathon globally where all CMS, we open our chargers, and then you can continuously check on that front. In vehicle side, we continuously engage with the vehicle OEMs, whether it's in their plant or we bring in through different rentals and everything. We continuously try to stay ahead of the curve for making sure there is no surprise in the field. But we all know the EV industry on all fronts, whether it is on the vehicle side or on the infrastructure side, is still not stabilized or settled on any of the standards. So it's still evolving. For Tesla, the closed loop system, it was easy to manage. When it would be open up for everything, there can be certain surprises in the field. But nevertheless, the enthusiasm of EV users is what keeping the industry alive, and I would say that the infrastructure OEMs like us would have to keep that in mind when we are releasing the product, that to test as many times possible with various different, whether it is CMS or on the EV side, whether it is economically and practically possible is a question, but that's the only way we can do it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, both of you. In fact, each country I've been to in the electric vehicle sector has a problem car. We thought we had one in India, but France has their own, China has their own, America has their own, because these are cars that are rushed. And each Charger OEM holds their breath when the car approaches the charger. Both of you are in an environment where the ecosystem hasn't caught up yet, right? There's a large part of the charger today has to be imported simply because it's too expensive in Europe and cheaper in other parts of the world, and the ecosystem does not exist in India. What are your thoughts on, as an industry, how this can be addressed so that the industry becomes truly Atmanirbhar? And I'm not talking about cables and connectors, because that's the easiest part. Even though we don't make them in India today, that'll happen in the next 12 months. I'm talking about the more complex power electronics, the converters and other elements of the charger, that there is no ecosystem in India. It's obviously an opportunity, but nobody has the scale. And therefore, there'll always be a price issue. What are your thoughts on how, as an industry, we can address this?
I would say, in terms of this pertains to localization, in my opinion. Yeah, so it has to be done through collaboration. I mean, Tirex as a company cannot do everything on our own. I cannot make cables. I cannot make, switch gears, and I cannot make the body myself. It has to be a collaborative effort. So the people who are good at power electronics should collaborate. The people who are good at the cable should collaborate. So everyone should collaborate, and then hence it will be in due time will come. Obviously, as a stage one, I would say as a phase one, it would still be more expensive than the imports from other countries, but it would be more reliable as well, because you have made it. You will be able to service it better. You will be able to solve the issues much more quickly. If, for example, a power module fails, right now every OEM is just swapping it out. You don't know what's going on inside. You don't know why it failed. But if you have your own design there, then it would ensure that, okay, this is why it failed. You can actually do a root cause analysis rather than just saying that the fuse blew off or the temperature rose or whatever. So you can actually do a root cause analysis and improve the product to ensure that, okay, not in a year's time, but in a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year period, when you actually have a better product, which is more suited to the Indian market, it can last for like 10, 15 years. So firstly, collaboration. And hence the advantages of localization are there. Like, as I said, the root cause analysis you can do better, you can service it better, you can find the components locally, you can repair it. Right now, if you, for example, if you say power modules, you just have to swap it out. You cannot repair them locally. Yes, but if you have your own, if you have your design, okay, this went wrong, I can replace this and hence again use it. That would also ensure the cost of operation comes down for our end customers, like CPOs or bus OEMs or whatever. For them also, if you are able to repair something, if it's costing, let's say 70,000 rupees, if you are able to repair it in 5 or 10,000, they don't have to pay that 70 to get it replaced. So collaboration would ensure these benefits as well.
Amit, your perspective?
So for us, we consider suppliers as not suppliers. We call it as technology partners. And it's in business interest of the technology partners, given the size of the Indian market, to also look at different ways of increasing the value addition, catering to the local government regulations or upcoming encouragement for having local value addition as a higher percentage. However, as an OEM right now, my commitment towards my customer is for a reliable system. And as Art mentioned, when we are looking at what an organization can stretch into different aspects of the components or the systems, everything can be done as an engineering organization. However, is it the right time or right way to do it is the question. So hence, every ecosystem works with the technology partners, and EV ecosystem is nothing different than that. So what we work is we really work very closely with our all technology partners, be it component or even software or firmware, any other aspects, and continuously have a dialogue which is futuristic, to keep eye on not only the regulation, but what would make sense. Because at the end, if unit economics is not making sense, whatever we wish, finally that particular product will not be commercialized. Hence, it's a joint effort We do have dialogues for global suppliers and also for local suppliers or technology partners, the way we will continuously put demands from our side. Your question was how we are going to achieve that. I think it's time will tell. I think we have, as a country, India also, we have indeed developed a lot of technologies in-house in country with local technology partners, technology players. A lot of Indian local companies have come up with certain solutions to take that to a serial production level is what we will continuously work with our technology partners. But now with Adore, how is that working? Because you also have been focused on increasing the local content and your own designs.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. And I think I'd say we have two grades of product. So we have a European grade because that's the product that goes to Europe and America, and it'll have a different controller and different converters. And then we'll have a more market-suited one that's targeted at Thailand, Indonesia, India, for example, that has a lower cost controller and a different set of converters and other power electronics. Our focus has been on what we call true Atmanirbharta, because the global supply chain crisis that we saw post-corona woke us up to it's very easy to rely on a low-cost network, but that network could evaporate very quickly for whatever geopolitical reason. So you're forced to innovate, even if you're not at that cost, and have that with you as in your back pocket, so that if anything happens, you're still able to replace it with your own product. And I completely agree with you, Arth. If you're just putting in components and assembling, you don't know what's wrong with the components. So you're just replacing, not repairing. And in the end, your costs will go up significantly. So we're focusing more on developing the core intellectual property, then we will address cost. That's probably the best way to put it. And that's an interesting point to go to a segue on the charging network health. A charging network is a lot like an airline. And so, in an airline, the cost of acquisition is 10% of the cost of the plane. It's the keeping the plane flying and making
Always
sure that it's there for the 15
air,
years, keeping it safe. That's really the cost. The whole of life cost is considered. And therefore, it's always the A320 that wins. This particular aircraft that'll always win because the whole of life cost is a slam dunk. We have a unique situation here where it's still only the cost of acquisition and not the cost of not the whole of life cost. What do you think we need to do to help educate the industry that you could get a very expensive Godrej cupboard if you just buy the cheapest cupboard? And somebody had done an analysis of all the public sector chargers available and talking about how 90% were not working. They were just, by the side of the road. So that could exacerbate over time. And I'm stuck in that thought process of what do we need to do as an industry to help educate industry that it is about the whole of life costs?
What we as an organization always engage with different, whether it is a customer or partner, is start with the planning, because currently whenever the infrastructure is getting deployed, it's on the, lack of better word, gold rush kind of direction. It's on a time sensitive basis. Everything is fast track. However, if somebody does a basic project management planning, likes of power availability, likes of power quality, likes of even access to that vehicle part. This is on the public charging side. On the bus side, believe me or not, it's a completely different ball game, because on the bus side, those poor bus depots were used to have only few air conditions and probably some laptops or some computers. So the load was not more than 100 kilowatt. And with umpty number of chargers in that, it's already a megawatt site, and there is no clue on that infrastructure owner side how to manage that megawatt power site. So that's where what we have been doing as an organization. We have independent consulting arm which actually works with the customer, whether it is public charging or even bus charging, who goes and looks at the grid availability, which actually can overlay the strength of the power grid, look at the traffic patterns. We call it as a stress tests of this part. We have done that for different city countries and kind of topics, and that gives a confidence where these kind of infrastructure can be deployed. Now comes the next part, is how do you actually change the discussion from acquisition to total cost of ownership. And that's where one would have to spend the time and actually show that the life of the charger close to 7 to 10 years, because that's where minimum expectation of any infrastructure investment is actually reducing once you have a reliable components inside the charger. At the beginning, yes, it's a very difficult discussion because somebody has to put upfront money. Can we change it? There are different business models, but not only business models, it's about actually the incentive of that asset owner is what going to dictate whether total cost of ownership is important or only acquisition cost is important. And that's what we continuously have engagement with our customers to focus that your asset decision is not for acquisition. We will be with you for total cost of ownership. Siemens has been there for hundreds of years. Don't worry, 10 years down the length, if anything is missing as a spare part, we'll be there. So that's what we bring, and that will change.
Yeah, I think Amit rightly summed up most of the points. I would say customer interaction is the most important part in terms of educating them that, okay, this thing is right now you're just acquiring for, let's say, an X cost, but you have to make sure it can run for 10 years. There are products out in the market who are already using controllers having chips which have stopped manufacturing. So let's say 5 years down the line, if you need a controller from the same guy who has supplied you chargers, he's not able to buy the chip or the microprocessor or controller in the product. So those things have to be educated to the customers, that what are you actually using inside your product, not just from a look and feel point of view, but the actual what goes inside in the embedded hardware level, what goes inside the application layer. You cannot use outdated products. You have to ensure that you do proper obsolescence of your product in the right way. So that education has to be there, that even though it might be, let's say, X plus 10 cost for you right now, but it is ensured that 10 years down the line, it will still work. And we as the industry suppliers would be there to support you in case something goes wrong. So that education is highly required right now to the government, to the policymakers, to the individual private customers as well.
It's an interesting point you make, because for that one chip, you'll have to replace the whole charger.
Exactly.
Because there's so much other work you'd have to do to connect a new controller. Absolutely right.
There, I would say even one step forward is about sometimes being cognizant about the technology evolution. I'll take a example, whether there was a decision to put CCS2 or Shademo. That's where the experience comes into matter. Adore has been active also in the market, not only in India, abroad. So from there, one can actually start drawing the conclusion that does it make sense to put an infrastructure which would not have utilization. In India now, it is sort of indicating towards CCS2. Pretty much majority of car owners have shifted to CCS2. Anything before that, the infrastructure is stranded asset.
Yes, it is. Bharat,
that's exactly what the EV charger OEMs or the matured EV charger OEMs would bring to the table. That to have a arm around the shoulder of the customer also, even if the cost of acquisition of a particular technology would be cost competitive or something else. The total cost of ownership not only talks about the annual maintenance contract or spare part availability, it's about the technology revolution which may come with it can include the bidirectional charging, it can include vehicle to grid, it can include as simple as cybersecurity. Currently it may not be the pressing point, but who is going to stand with you if a government regulation or a customer requirement comes with you after 3 years or 4 years down the length and say that I will not charge if it is not cyber secure or my data privacy is not maintained. And that's where organizations who have gone through that can walk with you. If that equipment is not ready, at least there is a solution for it because that organization is aware of it. So all those topics have to be continuously discussed. It's not easy, but that's why we are here.
So it's an interesting point you make, Amit. You talked about evolution of the tech stranded asset. I love that term. We know OCPP 2.0 is coming. We know auto charge is coming, plug and charge is coming. We know all of these evolutions. I'm interested beyond that. What is your take on how does India look in 5 years? And that could be the market, it could be the tech, it could be companies. Where are we heading to a more stable environment? Or is this going to be just a roller coaster adventure of learning over the next 5 years?
I would say in 5 years, it still would be a roller coaster. That is my opinion. I mean, it would stabilize more than it is today, but the industry is going to be there for 30, 35 years, 40 years at least. So in 5 years' time, it would still be a roller coaster, maybe a little less bumpy than it is right now, but it would still be a roller coaster ride. But yes, certain aspects would stabilize, like, interoperability, certain voltage levels, certain cybersecurity features for sure would stabilize. So those things might kick in picture. For example, as he rightly talked about cybersecurity measures, I see right now products having processors which are running on free RTOS versus compared to like Linux-based operating systems. You cannot have cybersecurity in free RTOS. Yeah. So if you put a product right now it's fine, it's working, it's charging. But then 5 years down the line, when India is the biggest market for data as well. You look at Jio, Vodafone, everyone. So when India would be the leading person in cybersecurity for sure. So when it comes to cybersecurity, the people who are invested in Linux-based operating system from day one would have that advantage over the ones who have not. Secondly, in terms of voltage architecture as well. So a lot of chargers out there right now only support up to 750 volt charging. But what happens when 800 volt, I mean, it's already there in Europe, but what happens when the same cars start coming to India in the generalized market? Right now it's at 400, 450. Yeah. What happens when, the Kia EV6 start becoming like the 20, 30 lakh car? So then you won't be able to charge at half of the infrastructure in India. So those things have to be in place from day one, at least for, a future 5-6 year timeline.
Yeah, I think India is at an interesting cusp. So anything from here, it's always going to go up. Potential is huge. As usual, India is a market which attracts a lot of attention from the different technology players. So there is going to be umpty number of innovations. I would call innovations not on only technology side, but also on the business model side. And we have to just wait through that entire revolution to see which stabilizes. And that's exactly why the pulse on how the automotive market is actually evolving would give a good glimpse onto what technologies EV charger OEMs need to be also bringing up. I named a couple of them, like this wireless charging or V2G. Are they going to be the talk of the town every day? Are we going to see that? May not be in next 5 years, but is that possible? Yes, sometimes that may be another technology which can solve our charging infrastructure problems, because if you move away to wireless charging, maybe the plugs and other parts cannot be a challenge for maintenance. It will pose another challenge about the vehicles, the coils and everything, but this evolution will continue to happen. My only thing is India is never going to be boring, so it's always going to be the exciting topic. It will keep everybody on toes because the ecosystem is very demanding.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's what keeps us going and keeps all of us interested.
So coming to the last question, the business end of the pod, Amit and Arth. We ask this question to all the talent that comes on our show, and I have to apologize for the very frivolous nature of this question, but it always brings a very pointed answer, and hence we ask it. And the question is this: if you had the opportunity to be the Prime Minister of India for one day, just one day, and you could make any decision you wanted on policy to implement faster adoption of electric vehicles in India, what would that decision be?
Being Siemens employee, I cannot be Prime Minister of India. That's moonlighting is not allowed in Siemens. But at the same time, I would say a clear direction to automotive industry. I would consider EV charging infrastructure industry a kind of a supporting or ancillary systems for automotive. A clear direction right now to automotive industry is what going to set the tone towards EV revolution. If we have a clear regulations in place to make sure the adoption is supported, whether it is city limits or whether it is a preventive measures onto the freight corridors or something, it will help the revolution, and that will automatically translate into the EV adoption. That's my.
In my opinion, it would be, same, just like giving the clear directions to the automotive as well as the ancillary components. It doesn't have to be chargers. It can be the batteries, the onboard DC-DC converters, the BMS, whatever, stuff like that. But keeping in mind the safety of the user and the life of the product. There have to be certain set standards. They may be adopted from the US, European, IC or UL standards. It doesn't matter that if we just copy paste them and improve them based on the Indian needs, it's okay. But they have to be in place to ensure safety and the longevity of the product that we are making. Now, I asked the same question to you. If you were Prime Minister for a day, the same question, yeah. What would be the?
I'd say, if the government was really serious about Atmanirbhar, build policies that are clearly about Atmanirbhar. It's not just about PLI for the big end of town and let it trickle down. It has to be across. And it's like America. Have an IRA and clearly say, I'll give you money if 55% of the content you're making is made in India. Force that investment to happen. Today, that money is going to the big end of town to make big stuff. But it will never trickle down. So that's very clear in my mind. We're not addressing